Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, and welcome back again.
Yes, welcome one, welcome all. Welcome short, welcome tall.
Yes, that's nice. Just everybody, just welcome.
And that's all I got.
Yeah.
Anyway, please do subscribe to both channels as always. Now, on EEARTS, we were going down the Tartarian, Atlantean, Lemurian, Muian line of thinking. And so I do want to kind of continue that, but we're going to start just by taking a look at some things that are still ongoing after the record cold, and it is still really cold out there. And we still have over 1 million people, as you can see, without power here. This is power outage .us, and we still have a large portion of Maine without power. And we have more people again in North Carolina. It was up, then it was down, and now it's up again. Almost 500,000 people without power in North Carolina. We have almost 300,000 in Tennessee without power. New York is down to 74,000 at the moment. But you can see many other states. Virginia, 61,000, 71,000. South Carolina, 91,000. Over in Alabama, just 17,000 in Florida and 14,000 in Texas. You know, it was brutally cold in Ohio. Also in Kentucky, as we have 40,000 without power over there. So let's hope everybody gets their power back. Let's hope everybody was prepared with some sort of backup system too.
Absolutely. Let's send that information out for all of that power to come back on.
Yeah, we got this from a family member, and then we saw this too, and we sent it out to some. Ingredients derived from a bioengineered source. Hellmann's mayonnaise. I mean, that was the only mayonnaise my mom ever bought. Yeah, derived from a bioengineered source. Who knows what it is?
I know. I guess they just don't really have to say what it is, or maybe just the people who make the label don't know anyway. I don't know.
This is part of why we stocked up a little bit heavier earlier, just because now as you go to replenish things, and make sure you rotate your stock if you do have ample food and are thinking in long terms, manner. Make sure you're always rotating again. Like I didn't realize, and I should have realized, that we had a lot of olive oil that was getting close to being out. But a lot of times those use by dates are suggestive, as they're really best by dates, and not like you're automatically going to get sick if you eat something that, say it's good to the 14th and now it's the 15th. No, it's not necessarily like that. But again, there's no life force in that. So think in terms of ki, chi, prana, vril, the life force. Eat live fruits and vegetables as much as you can, because again, we are electromagnetic beings. So if we're always eating stuff that's frozen food, canned food, we're not really charging our bodies.
No, we're not. And we're not giving it that honest nutrition that it needs. Our cells are very, very electric. They need to talk to each other in that manner. And one of the best things that can create that electricity inside of you is drinking plenty of water. Can make you very conductive, and then not eating stuff that you don't know what's in it.
Whenever we have soup, we make it from scratch. And part of it's because there's things like this, carrageenan, which they're always sticking in things. It's a thickening agent, they say. But yet, carrageenan has been shown in so many studies to be potentially a negative cancer-causing substance. It's in so many different things. It might be could be in your almond milk, could be in your cottage cheese. Creamers, check your creamers. Check out your milk. Check out things that you would not think would necessarily have something like this in it, and it might be there. And just because you went and bought it 2 weeks ago and now you're going to get it again, check the label, because they are changing ingredients constantly. There is no left and right. This is Catherine Austin Fitz warning of corruption out of control and the spending machine financed with our taxes. Again, the illusion that she's alluding to, that there is no left and right. It's all part of a system. This is when we have major change. When humanity wakens up to the fact that, you know what? We're in a control grid. Okay, then it's time to hang on tight.
You know, it's good that someone like this comes out and states it, but too many people are sticking to the mainstream media, thinking to themselves, well, if the mainstream reports it, then it's true. Then I will pay attention. But they're in on it, so it's never going to come from them. Develop that discernment.
So she says the U.S. government's so fraudulent that it's going to self-destruct a lot sooner than later. And yeah, it's on a timeline, and that timeline is very, very close. You know, we obviously will always keep everybody anonymous that we deal with, but we do deal with people that are connected at the highest levels of government. And they know what's going on. They understand. And you know, we have those that we have talked to that, you know, the writing's on the wall, so they've gotten out of Dodge, and they're setting themselves up to ride out this storm in a place that's far away from population centers and where they're going to be able to be self-sufficient because they understand what's coming. They understand, at least to a degree, that there's absolute major changes. I mean, major changes coming afoot.
There is. And, you know, it's good to be way out there, but, you know, take note of who is around you. I think we should go back a little bit to that old-fashioned way of introducing yourself to the neighbors, because people will ultimately have to pull themselves together. And I know right now a lot of you guys are so empathic, you're so sensitive that you don't want people near you because you're picking up their traumas. But at some point we're going to have to step past that. We're going to have to reevaluate ourselves so that we can survive together. And you know what? There's going to be some really beautiful moments in that, in people stepping out of their fear matrix and trying something different. That's really going to help.
Yeah, you know, in some ways you could look at this as a recipe. You know, say there's a recipe where you separate the yolk and the white, and then you're going to use both later, so to speak. Well, we are separating naturally because, you know, those that have done something and those that are buying into the system that's in place are going to find, you know, that, well, we're going to find that we're kind of more and more incompatible frequency-wise. You know, those that stay organic will find that they don't feel good around the system, that they don't feel good with people that are in this system because of frequency incompatibility. And so what's going to happen is we're going to end up with new groupings of people. Again, family is the friends that you make, or family. What's that?
I love that saying. Friends are the family you choose for yourself.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that's what's going to happen. So, you know, you might have been born into one family, but you're going to find that you might be coming together with a totally new family in the future.
Mm-hmm. And you know, that's a saying that's really dear to my heart. I've talked to you guys about my friend Susan, and you reached out so much, and I told you what had happened to her and my path of finding the truth, needing to know the truth. And you guys were so sweet. You reached out. You were so kind. But that's something that she taught me, and I'll never forget.
Thanks for sharing, sweetheart. So, you know, thank you guys too for all that you do in word and energy and intent and deed. This is former CIA officer John Ramirez. Now, he claims the government's aware of an impending event in 2027 which will reveal something quite significant, so people are being prepared. Well, yes, there most definitely are people in the government that understand there's things coming, and it could be that they're compartmentalized, so they don't understand all. They've heard rumors, they've heard buzz, they know something is not typical, that there is some sort of major significant event or series of events that are coming on down the line, And they could see the preparation. We all talk about these deep underground military bases. We talk about booms and stuff. Honestly, the last few days, since the weather got cold, and it could be related to the extreme cold, there's been strange rumblings and stuff. And I don't necessarily think of deep underground military bases in this area, but they're kind of everywhere. And yeah, absolutely. I had heard somebody speaking recently that was in government, or was formerly in government, and they were talking about the fact that there's enough in the United States to house 100 million plus people under the ground. And that's something that's not available to the public. Like in Russia, they do have underground facilities they could pull in the majority of their population in case of a NUKE war, which we don't have here. And if there is the ability to pull so many people into safety underground in the U.S. and they're not sharing, well, that's not nice. But we don't accuse them of being nice. Actually, it's pretty obvious that the control grid is all about the control grid. So let's listen to what he has to say about what he knows.
And I would say I've heard 2027 in a kind of an official capacity I can't reveal. So I think I would say that people in the government are aware of something happening and that there's limited time, a few more years to prepare the people, and that's what's ramping up this acceleration from the previous 7 decades of not even acknowledging it to now we are acknowledging it at a faster and faster pace.
So again, he didn't really give us anything except something's coming that the powers that be know. So this is from a little blurb, and there's a bunch of links I'm going to give you guys. So if you want to, you could go and listen to them in depth. This is a 2.5 hour interview at Sasquatch Chronicles, and there's a few others. So he's a retired GS-15 ranking CIA officer. When I mentioned that to Cindy, she says, you don't retire ever from the CIA. You don't retire ever from the FBI. Not really.
No, not really. It's kind of like joining the mafia and then quitting. That just doesn't happen.
No, exactly. So he served within the agency from 84 to 2009. So that's not just a year or two. I mean, that's like 25 years he was in there. Okay, that's a lifer pretty much. So again, what's he doing now? Is he still serving in some way, shape, or form? I would venture to say he is still serving the CIA at some level. Now, does this mean that everything that he says is a lie? No, because again, this is kind of how they operate. They'll give you a high percentage of the truth with a distortion, a purposeful distortion.
That's one of their favorite games that they like to play, because it could be, getting people to panic and do something that's not going to serve them in the long run and might actually end up hurting them, while they're trying to do something to get out of the system really quickly. When we have to do this, we really need to be thoughtful, and we need to take one step after the next, and don't do anything like a knee-jerk reaction. Just don't do that, because that could really hurt you in the long run.
And again, Cindy and I have had so many personal one-on-one interactions with beings that are extraterrestrials, so it's not conjecture on our part. It's up to you whether or not you feel that we're believable or not. And, develop the discernment. Really go within. Search. Feel into it. Feeling is something that is actually more powerful than intellectual. Just like sorting through facts, figures, and different writings. You got to feel into something to see, does this feel right? Or does this feel like there is some sort of, just something wrong with it. Something doesn't jive. So, he is here giving his presentation on UAP data collected within the United States intelligence community. a presentation that aims to, amongst other things, advise members of the UFO community as to the best approaches for the Freedom of Information Act requests. So, yeah, again, I think there is this, well, we have to know, they have to have out there all the information for us. And it's up to us whether we see it, whether we put it together in a logical way, whether we put it together illogically. And again, it's all about discernment. So there's links over here for interviews, and there are some interesting things that he has disclosed, and we're going to get into a couple of those articles that talk a little more in depth. But you got to realize this is the time of letting a lot of the cat out of the bag, but there's a purpose behind this. There's a major purpose behind this. CIA and Google are translating extraterrestrial messages. This is from February of this year, claims former agent. And this is him, John Ramirez, 25 years with the CIA. So according to John Ramirez, CIA offered Google its technology to help with the data exchange between alien civilizations, as well as to prepare for increased disclosure of UFOs, hybrids, and the future of information technology. John Ramirez served at the CIA's Directorate of Science and Technology, Directorate of Intelligence, Office of the Director of National Intelligence from 1984 to 2009. He worked his way up to GS-15 grade, which indicates he had a highly senior position at the agency. On October 17, 2021, he made a splash in UFO world when he appeared on Popular Witnesses and podcast. He's a highly brilliant man with extensive knowledge and expertise in U.S. intelligence establishment as well as the UFO issue. So he's possibly the first former CIA official to use Twitter to connect with the UFO community. He is dedicated to informing the public about intelligence community structure and inner workings. According to Ramirez, there's currently a knowledge gap among people in the UFO community. Ramirez hopes that by arming researchers with necessary knowledge, the community can improve its success rate, particularly when filing for Freedom of Information Act requests. He gave a series of slides on Project Unity channel to help scholars understand the FOIA procedure, and he listed the appropriate agencies to contact when requesting particular sorts of materials. And so why would he be so intent on getting us to ask the right questions so we could get the right answers?
Well, we have to look at this information and, like we always say, feel into it. What is going to benefit you? If you get this information, is that going to benefit you in a certain way for the long run of things? So, what our controllers do is they're very intent on making sure that they're the ones who are safe, that nothing breaches their boundaries that they need for their long-term survival. Well, we need to flip that and understand that we're up against a predator. So you really need to do the same thing for yourself. Get selfish. If you need something, get something. Take care of you and your family, and always take care of the innocent.
So, ex-CIA officer, humans are hybrids, and there are classified UFO programs bigger than AATIP. In the 1940s, the CIA first became involved in UFOs. Since then, a number of former U.S. military and CIA officers have advanced ufology by making stunning remarks. Former CIA and U.S. military officials, including R. James Woolsey, John Brennan, Jim Semivan, Lou Elizondo, and others, have described how the existence of reality all around us that we are unable to perceive could be a major aspect of the UFO phenomenon. So here it goes into John Ramirez again. He specialized in ballistic missile defense systems. This is a serious individual. 25 years, high grade, senior capacity. We should understand that there's a major purpose here. And so now if he's given us 2027 and he's stating things like humans are hybrids, you know, this, we don't need him or any of these guys like, Lou Elizondo and James Woolsey, John Brennan. We don't need all these and so many others that have come out of the woodwork. Paul Hellyer. I mean, we could go on and on. Phil Schneider, who's no longer with us. Bill Cooper talked about this type of UFO thing too, and now he didn't know whether it was our tech or alien tech. He didn't ever really kind of sort through that before he left us because he didn't pay his taxes. So that's the official thing. Again, we don't need that. We could just look back to the legends. We could talk to the First Nation people. We could talk to the beings that we would call the Native Americans that were here upon the land, who perhaps were not the original. Maybe the original were red-headed giants and giants of other color hairs. Absolutely. We could go and look to the mythology. We could say, well, why do we have the Nazca lines? Now think about this, right? If people are going to say, well, obviously, you can only see the Nazca lines and clearly make out what they are from way above the ground. So somebody was flying around. Now, some have made the connection that, and this is a logical assumption, what if there are some humans that understand the 12,000-year cycle and also maybe the smaller cycles as well and have bunkers, for lack of a better word? They understand where these locations are. What if, Grand Canyon's blocked off not just because they don't want us seeing Buddhist statues with Egyptian statues at the same time because that blows everything about the paradigm they've given us, but also because it's where they're going to book their butts into to get down into their nice, tidy little bunkers because, they could house 100,000 people down there or more. Again, China Lake and Ridgecrest, there's military bases built on these places to keep people away from these entrances to the inner earth. And we've talked about that in the past, and we'll talk about it again. We're sorting the playlist so you could binge watch and go into it. And, there's more videos over on Evolutionary than there is on EEARTS. And there's a whole bunch of videos that had to be made private on Evolutionary that we'll be sorting through again, as we did apply to get it remonetized and they shut it down again. Every year you get to reapply for monetization and they shoot it down every year. So there again, it tells you they are still hiding all this. But the points are the myths of the people around the globe. The indigenous people know we're not alone. They know that we've had interaction with extraterrestrials and inner earth civilizations as well. It's just a given. The controllers don't want you knowing this. Again, 65-70% of the world looks at our reality through an Abrahamic lens. So if you think you found the big discovery with the flat Earth, no, that's the big psyop. And again, there's CIA and FBI that are pushing that. They're the ones pushing this psyop. So some believe, again, well, now they want us to believe in aliens. Well, no, it's inevitable. Humanity's going to realize there's aliens because we're going to see them in front of us. They're going to be introduced to us, and they're not human.
Mm-hmm. And, it might start off as something kind of mundane where they're going to point to certain beings that look just normal human, and they're going to say, well, these are alien. But ultimately, you can see that in all of us. We all have a galactic history. We all are from the stars. We are all very different, but it is going to be something generic, kind of like that's non-eventful, but then it's going to get better and it'll get more, and they'll bring in more and more information. Always remember, frog in boiling water. This is how they operate.
Yeah, again, humans are hybrids. Now that's not our soul, because the body is just a vehicle. So ultimately, did the Anunnaki create the eternal you? No. No, the Draco, the Anunnaki, the AI did not, because, Source is in you. This is the big reality. This is why in Revelation it says, when will the end come? It'll be when humans recognize God. God's in them. God is them. They are God. And so here I hear so many people that still are just so lost. They don't understand it because of their indoctrination. How can we compare ourselves to God or these beings, And again, they keep wanting to refer to everything as an angel. Angel means messenger. That's all it really means. Yet there are beings, there truly are beings that we can classify as angels. And what do? Well, in reality, they're more like spirit guides. They're there to guide. They're beings that are not actively taking an incarnation at this point in time. Instead, they are serving others. That is what an angel is.
Mm-hmm. And there's I look at our pets. Our pets, they're true little angels. They always lift us in frequency anytime, no questions asked.
So again, it's the definitions that are distorted that cause a blurry lens when we view everything. So that happens. It could happen really quickly, and we should make note of it. Look at our dictionary. The very definition of what a woman and a man is being rewritten right now, and right before our eyes. So, what you grew up with as the definition of a woman or a definition of a man has changed. How many of us could listen to somebody speaking Old English, 400 or 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago? We wouldn't even understand anything that they're saying. We wouldn't get it. And we have a hard enough time understanding in the U.S. some people from, say, Ireland or Scotland. And then they're going to have a hard time with somebody that maybe has, a Southern accent, or maybe they have an accent from Maine or Massachusetts. I mean, sometimes, again, just local accents could be enough to throw us off. And then we add in the fact that the very definitions of words are constantly changing. Look at Wikipedia. It's a constant revision. Wikipedia was, the online dictionary of the people, by the people, for the people. Now it's become the official source. How did that happen? Who hijacked it? Well, it was always that way. Always that way. You got to realize the whole internet itself is a military byproduct. Why do we have the largest military budget ever? We were talking about that last night in the U.S. It's not to protect the U.S. citizens. It's to protect the system, the elites. Again, when we talk about these alphabet soups, they don't work for you and I. They work for the system. So again, you don't ever really retire from the alphabet soups. If you did truly retire, you might be retired.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And one thing that we can always count on is that there will be change. Over time, things are going to change, but keep in mind that they're grooming us for a certain change. They are preparing us to accept things in a certain way. And that's where we need to pull back. And once we see it and understand it, then you can pull back and claim your sovereignty. But if you're not even awake to it, you're just going to walk right off the edge of the cliff. And that's the part that makes me sad. All these really good people with big hearts, and they don't know what's happening to them.
And as Cindy says this, it makes me think of a couple of people that we know that, again, have been inside the belly of the beast. And, by looking at their charts, we see, and there's a change in them now where they can't serve the beast per se with a clear mind, a clear heart, because they recognize that, it wasn't an angel with a halo. It was actually quite the opposite. And so, some are trying to change it from within. Could this be the case with Mr. Ramirez? Perhaps. Maybe he's one that really does want change from within, but at the same time, he's got to watch what he says because he won't be here tomorrow. It's just a sad fact of the way things are. So, is he giving us, something from the heart because he knows that humanity has a certain amount of time to get ready for some major events? It could be. It could be. Again, discernment. Build that discernment. How do you get that discernment? It's by being clear. And again, you could view things in a couple different ways. Like what? There's going to be so many people that are going to, face these trials and tribulations of the tribulation. Well, let's eat, drink, and be merry. Well, there's that point of view. Or there's the other point of view where let's sober up, sharpen up, let's get our butts in gear, let's get organized. And when it comes, we're going to ride out the storm, and then we're going to For lack of a better term, well, let's do a better term, okay? We're not going to build back better.
No.
No. We're going to be guided by higher powers, higher intuition, higher thoughts, higher aspirations, and we're not going to rebuild the system the same way. And one of our dear brothers, Brother Keith, again, he's a beautiful soul. He watches every single video, and he's been fighting cancer. And again, cancer is something that does happen naturally in the body. And if the body is operating optimally, if we were not in this toxic soup system that we're in, you wouldn't see the cancers. The cancers are the result of a sick society, a sick program, a sick food system. This is why we have cancer. And without a doubt, every single time that I do 24 hours or more, even 16 hours in an intermittent fast, I always get a boost. I mean, it's just inevitable. I get like such clarity. I start feeling happier, more positive, more vibrant. And if it is 24 to say 48, 60-hour fast, then I'm bouncing off the roof for a while. It's because every day, even no matter how good we eat, we're taking in toxins. We're breathing in toxins. I mean, they spray the sky every day. The water's not pure. The food is pathetic. Even the organic food. The world will, once this system is no longer in place, Mother Earth is going to, as Toole said, it's going to wash all of the system away. Hang on tight at that period of time. You will be guided to places where you need to go to ride out that storm. That time is not yet, although there is going to be some more major, definitely major catastrophic earth change related, still many times artificially induced or artificially incremented earth changes. There are some things coming that we have to prepare for. That is coming. And so again, he's basically saying the same thing. It's coming.
There's some people who are in a position to help many. They might be able to do something to make the lives of others better. But when we look at the society that we have, and yes, it's a sickness. Sometimes the best thing that you can do is go within and heal yourself, because the sickness, truly, it starts with us. So sometimes, you might be a point of energy that is so incredibly important, that is tied to a larger consciousness. And if you just heal yourself, you realize how many others that are in that soul stream can also heal. It's very much a domino effect, very, very much a domino effect. So if you don't feel you can do anything, the best thing you really can do is heal yourself, because all those around you are also going to be able to heal, and then all those around them. And it's just like this huge wave. You are the pebble in the pond. You are the most important part of healing.
So this is showing the population of the United States by the year. And I wanted to go back to the beginning of World War I, 1914. July 1st, 1914, and July 1st is just an arbitrary day that they have this information put down on. 99.11 million people in the United States is what they tell us. We're sitting at 333 million right now. 333 million. Oh, doesn't that sound like that's a number of significance?
Yeah,
it certainly does. Now, that's the official number of people, not including illegals, which maybe we'd add another 33 million to it. But the point I wanted to get to you is 99 million. So in 100 years, 108 years time, we've tripled the number of people on the planet, in the U.S., more than tripled, in fact. And there it is. If we look to the DEA/GEL numbers, they expect there to be 99 million people in 2025. And again, these numbers have been purged as much as possible. If you guys know any more Wayback Machines or anything, please do share in the comments. But again, 99, it's just taken us back 100 years roughly, so to speak. 100 years of growth. Now, the U.S. obviously, what's the real history of the U.S.? So that's something we don't know. We really don't. But yet we see as people were digging, they were constantly uncovering giant bodies. Who was here before those that we call the Native Americans? And the Native Americans did live alongside a lot of these giants. They avoided certain areas. I've been to Judicula's Rock, did video on that up in the Appalachians in North Carolina, and the Devil's Courthouse, where Judicula, who was a giant, used to hold court. So the legend says, amongst disputes over anything, he held court not only over other giants, but also humans, and also other beings that we don't necessarily see now, but we might see soon. So again, this repopulation idea, we've touched on this briefly. It's fascinating to think storks. Why did somebody tell people that? Why do we tell kids storks bring babies? Why do we tell them that? Well, because there's these legends of storks bringing babies. There's legends, when you look at Cabbage Patch dolls, of kids growing in cabbage patches. What's up with that? There's even the line of thought that the mailmen used to bring kids. When you start to think about, and we do know there was such a thing as orphan trains, where did all these orphans come from? What happened? Why do we have all these orphanages and stuff? And what happened to the parents? And we're looking at, it could be because a lot of the motion pictures, the first motion picture, I believe, in the U.S. was 1895. Wasn't that what we saw? I think, that was in, I think that was the first motion picture ever. Wasn't it? I think it was in France in 1895 or thereabouts. So when we start seeing stories being told, that's pre-World War One. That's pre-World War One. I remember the Bowery Boys. I remember Abbott and Costello, Keystone Cops, and all this. We've recently gotten this, a solution to Elon Musk's fear of population collapse. Artificial womb facility, that can produce like 30,000 babies a year. How different is this really? Yeah, sure, technology-wise, it looks different. But from the concept of Cabbage Patch, what is that Cabbage Patch? Where do these babies come from? Because you can find there's some channels that have done a good job documenting this. And literally, it's like babies were growing somewhere. And then we talk all about clones. I think the population is waking up to the fact that there's definitely more than one number 46. They're very different looking, very, very different. Now, cloning, again, in and of itself, is kind of creepy in many ways. We had Dolly, that whole thing. That was so many years ago. What was that, 35, 40 years ago? Dolly the sheep, the first clone sheep, yeah. We got all these mythologies of chimeras, and yet we have people like Phil Schneider telling us there's these underground bases where there's experiments where they're making human-animal hybrids. And then we have people that have been abducted that see humans in test tubes and other species in test tubes and hybrids of, all sorts and varieties and very extraterrestrial looking beings in test tubes. And, Cindy does have recollections of being up in ships, and many of you guys do as well.
Mm-hmm. So many people are put in that situation, but many of us, we simply don't identify it right away because they do things to you to stop your memory, to make sure that you don't see or know or understand what just happened because there was some form of interference with your human journey, and that's something karmically really should not happen, but it still happens. And if it happens, you really have to understand for yourself, was this good or was this bad? Nobody can tell you that. But when I was taken up, I did see beings kind of in a stasis, a place of stasis, and it was really disturbing. But I saw what I saw. It's just, this is what's going on, and it's really difficult to just blurt that information out because well, you guys know, many of you are kind of not really ostracized from the family, but people don't believe you because they think you're just crazy or you're nuts. But once you see that, that's really life-changing, and it's there.
And again, you got a 25-year CIA operative of a very high level telling you humans are hybrids. Hello. Yeah, I mean, it's they got to tell us the truth because, this is the reality, and it's not the first hybrid. And so it's so interesting to look into these World's Fair pictures and other pictures going back in time 100 years or more. And this is from New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand, World's Fair, 1913, 1914. And you know what we see is just an unusual amount of baby incubators, hygienic day nursery for children. 100 plus years ago, I mean, wives didn't typically go and work. Why do you need daycare for kids? And look at this, infant incubators with living infants. It's just weird, isn't it? It's just kind of weird.
Oh, that's so gross. As opposed to what? Infants. Ugh.
I mean, wait a minute. Living in the way that kids on display like that. And yeah, as you can see this photo, and as we blow this up, this will get more distorted, but you can see, make out. There you go. There's another ancient photo. Carrier does air conditioning. Well, they do this too. Here you go. 1913. Little palm trees and incubators with little humans in there for adoption or for what? Where'd they come from? People have started to wonder, where did they come from? Why all these baby incubators? Is it just premature ones? Well, that looks like a tiny one. Is it just premature? And again, then we start looking at these ancient photos and so many buildings with these spires, and we see a lot of things poking up everywhere, and you just start wondering, is there hidden technology in plain sight? Incubators. Why all these infant incubators? Such a big attraction. And, the way he's holding those babies, and they are tiny, it's all got such a weird feel to it, doesn't it? Thermostatic nurse or baby incubator. Well, history repeats itself. The Enuma Elish, the Babylonian epic of creation, it just comes straight out and says, again, now every time it's talking about the gods, and it does talk about, again, you have to recognize this is still the controller story. Because even though these Sumerian tablets are way older than anything biblically, way, thousands of years older, it's still the controller story. These are still coming out in the period of the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga. Yeah, there are hundreds of thousands of them. And no, they're not all just translated by Zecharia Sitchin. No, there's many scholars that have translated these. Again, Sitchin is a distortion, absolutely, but he was just one of the first ones to make a mass statement of this and point things out. Now, again, we don't think Nibiru is on a 3,600-year journey because we think Nibiru is in reality a mothership at this point in time. It's not really even a planet anymore. It's basically a mothership and can be steered anywhere. So they could go and take it anywhere they want. It is a 4D planet, but then again, we are now basically, for the most part, 4D beings that when we sleep and when we're awake, we're still in that same 4D experience for the most part. There are beings that can touch 5D when we get up to a very high place in our meditation or yoga, qigong, things like that. We can be touching on 5D and starting to expand our consciousness up into the higher realms. But each is a unique individual with all that as well. But what this does talk about is the destruction of Tiamat. And again, Tiamat is, and then it's interesting too, because Tiamat itself gets separated. The recreation of Tiamat into Earth is what we have gotten from the guides, that Earth is Tiamat. Earth is a smaller planet than what Tiamat was. And this is also why there were so many giants in the past, and why we might even have giants as mountains, because Tiamat was much, much larger than the Earth. It was destroyed in this battle between the gods, quote unquote, and Tiamat. And there's references in this to Tiamat's children and all, and if we read the whole of this, then we'd have a 2-hour plus video here. The point is, again, recognizing this is the overtaking of the age. This is the dark Anunnaki draconian AI power structure taking over this planet. And yeah, there have been whole planets destroyed in this bigger battle, because again, it is an interdimensional galactic battle that's underway. But in it, it just talks again about the creation of human bodies. And so they needed, again, a perfect worker bee. We are all still wage slaves. We are still in slavery, so to speak, on the planet. As long as we are, not doing exactly what our soul wants us to do in some way, shape, or form, we're, quote unquote, making a living, well, then we're still working, so to speak, for the system.
Mm-hmm. I mean, our soul should be free to express itself in whatever way it wants to. And many times we're being forced to do things that we really, really don't like, and that they just don't feel good. And it's very much like nails on a chalkboard, that kind of energy that you just cannot sit with. And we're all waking up to that. We're all waking up to our soul purpose, what we're here to do. And the longer we're in that space where we're doing something our soul is not wanting us to do, it is going to be a difficult time. And it can get to the point where it really, really starts to affect your health, and you can no longer ignore it. That's part of the awakening, and that's the exact thing that the controllers, they know this is happening, and they're doing everything they can do, including changing our very fabric to try to continue on or get away with it.
So hominins and hominids, there's been many, let's say, humanish, apish species on the planet, and again, what's happened here? There's many layerings to this, many layerings, as we see. There's right here. There's listed 25 different species now. Are all these directly related to us? Well, no. Some of these you won't really find any DNA necessarily that's exactly what we have now. But then again, our DNA is tampered with. We know it's been tampered with. There's a splicing that now they're trying to come out with language to say, no, there's no splicing of the second chromosome. Again, it's the fact checkers doing damage control as we start to recognize, wait a minute here. We start to wake up, and, Homo floresiensis is a fascinating one. There's a video you can find, and at some point we'll do a video on it, of this tiny little guy. This is over in Indonesia, that was caught on camera not too long ago, just a handful of years ago. Appears to be about 4 foot tall or so, somewhere around that, and goes booking as these 4 guys on motorcycles, caught it a little bit off guard. It's very, very human looking. And so again, one of the things you'll see is they try to make it look way more apish. It's a Darwinian thing. All these faces, I think we can, say is a total distortion, because yes, we have the bones to work with, but again, did they look so, for lack of a better term, monkeyish? I don't think so. And this is what you've gotten too. I mean, you might walk right by her on the street, and this is again Homo floresiensis, and you might think, wow, she's a midget, look how small she is, but she's going to look very, very humanish.
And keep in mind that certain people have been brought on board for our learning pleasure, just so that they can put this information together and make it look somewhat palatable. They pay people to put this information together for it to be wrong, yet to get us to buy into it.
Yeah, Homo erectus, and we look at Homo habilis, Heidelbergensis, Homo naledi, all these would look much more human-like than what they're depicting them. They're trying to make them look not human-like, but the reality is you might walk right by them, and you might just say, I wonder what part of the world they're from. Yeah, but you wouldn't be freaking out. You wouldn't be saying, oh my God, it's the missing link. No. Yeah, you would just think that's another human. And most definitely when you get up into Neanderthals and Denisovans as well, you just might think, wow, it looks pretty buff. Pretty strong guy there. But, again, there's so many different species. These are all related to different resets. Many of them are just new versions. And again, what do they want to get rid of? They want to get rid of that God gene. They want to get rid of any notion of us being connected to the higher densities, because again, they're just trying to maintain their assets. And so we'll give you guys all these different links, such distortions. I mean, in reality, if you took this guy, dressed him in a business suit, gave him a nice clean shave, again, you probably wouldn't look twice at him.
No, I don't think so.
No, it's a distortion. And, as you look at some of the interesting technology that was out there 100 years ago, that might blow your mind. And again, recognize that people that might have gotten through a little bit of a realization, they still, there's so many that are still just, they're then going to relate everything to the Nephilim. And the whole terminology of the Nephilim is a distortion. It's a this age distortion. Now, in the last age, they would use a little different lingo. Who knows what it would have been? It would have been a different term. They would revise it again, give us a whole new good book, or a whole new set of good books with, a lot of distortion and some truth. And people will believe in it to the death, again, when it's just, again, part of the script. But, the good news is the Creator's inside you right now. It's just a matter of quieting the mind and going within, because the entire universe is inside us.
And we all have a chance to do it. It's a matter of prioritizing it.
Yeah, there's no dogma that we need. The only realization is in, who am I?
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
As always, guys, thanks for your support over on Patreon and Ko-Fi. Check out evolutionaryenergyarts.com if you need to reach us to set up an appointment. It's evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com. Appointments are about 2 to 3 weeks out right now. But as always, stay prepared. Happy holidays. Much love. Rama says woof woof, and Sita is sleeping.
Yes, and namaste.
Namaste, Rama.